But no, here was my favorite realignment headline of the weekend. The ACC has continued to look at possible expansion, according to Jim Phillips. The ACC has been and remains highly engaged in looking at anything that makes us a better and stronger conference, Phillips told ESPN. We've spent considerable time on expansion to see if there is anything that fits. We have a tremendous group of institutions, but if there is something that made us better, we would absolutely be open to it, which is the best way to answer that question, especially considering that I don't know who that would be. Like, UConn makes more sense for them than it does the Big 12 in my mind. USF would make a little bit of sense for them, but Memphis, if Memphis, like kind of that gets a little bit on the fringe of where they are. But, I know that there's the ACC Pac-12 scheduling alliance that could maybe happen down the line, but you're not going to add if, 3 teams go to the Big 12, say, and there's 6 teams sitting there left in the Pac-12. You're not going to go, if you're the ACC, and add Oregon and Washington because they're not going to really want to do that because it's like unless they really had to, for USC and UCLA, at least for the Big Ten and those teams, they can stop in the middle on those Olympic sports and non-revenue sports trips. So if you've got to go to Happy Valley, you can at least stop at Wisconsin on the way back. I don't know if it works the same way if you're the ACC and trying to grab a Pac team.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what their strategy would be like on who they would go, and I don't think that we're talking poaching here. I think we're talking about sitting back and seeing what could, be available now that maybe wasn't before. And, I don't have a good idea. Chat, what's up, Chat? Should have said that earlier. But, Chat, you can speculate and let us know what you think about what the ACC's tactic might be here. But, on the surface, I just read that of, like, being ready like they should be, being ready like, Brett Yormark in the Big 12 were, being ready like the SEC was when Oklahoma and Texas gave them that phone call, being ready like the Big Ten was when USC and UCLA gave them that phone call. I think it's all about staying ready, whether you're the conference or whether you're the university at this point. Imagine being a university that all this has gone on and maybe you've been teetering. And I know there's schools that have been in this position, like a Memphis, for example, or a South Florida. Over the years, obviously, BYU and various others, Houston's been fighting to get there for a long time now. You better be ready when your number's called because there's not a guarantee that this just goes on and on and on until the end of time. And then 10 years later, like there's going to be another window open. I feel like, again, consolidation has been as much of the buzzy word of late as anything, and it does feel like everybody's grabbing their deck chair while they're still there, and I don't know what that would mean, as far as who the ACC would be looking at or go grab, but I do think they're staying ready, and I think if you're one of those schools, it's a possibility for any of these conferences. You better hope that you've been getting your ducks in a row and that you are ready if that call comes, because it very well could. It could be coming from the Pac, be coming from the Big 12, could be coming from the ACC. Interested to know what people think that their strategy is, other than if they just agree that it's like, hey, let's just make it known that we're open for business. Like Brett Yormark said, we're not dictating anything, but if something's there to grab hold of, then we'll be ready to pounce if we need to be.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's interesting.
And they've got their own in-house problems still to still figure out at the same time with their crown jewels and the revenue sharing. I know that they've kind of solved part of that, but that doesn't seem like it's just all, we've wrapped a bow and we can just put that to the side. That seems like there's still little smoke, coming out from time to time there.
Look, I'm pretty reasonably confident that in the next decade, Clemson or Florida State, and maybe somebody else in the ACC, but one of those two teams, and maybe Miami with the way things are going, but I'm going to say Clemson and Florida State, since those are the two teams that have won most of the ACC titles. Take one of those conference championships at least and make a deep college football playoff run. Whether they win a title or not is really hard to say or do, especially since we don't know how the 12-team playoff is going to go. But I'd be willing to bet that in the very near future, before the next Big Ten TV deal is up, and in the first years of the 12-team playoff, that one of those two teams will be good enough to be, playing in the last game of the year. Probably Clemson, because maybe I've had too much joy in my life. But say Clemson is. And then they're going to play in the national championship game on January 11th. And then they're going to wake up on January 12th, and they're going to get a check that's $40 million less than Rutgers, who didn't even try.
Right.
You know, so it has nothing to do with Rutgers. Like, they're not mad at Rutgers. Rutgers is in a great situation, but they're like, how did we get in this spot where this team with this university, who is not going to put forth the same amount of resources that we are to this thing, and we are right now the best team in it, is making more money than us? Because it's just one of those things that they're just never going to be able to reconcile. That's where I think that the rubber's going to hit the road with the ACC.
I mean, if Colorado's willing to leave over, well, we still don't know the money figure, do we? Because we know what the Big 12 is making. We still don't know what the Pac is going to make. So, you know, that's, I guess, to still be speculated upon. But they were worried that much about exposure and a dollar figure that they're not even really all that sure about. And I can tell you right now, it's not $40 million. It's not the gulf that the ACC will probably have compared to the Big Ten or the SEC by the time they actually go to the table. So, yeah, I mean, if Colorado's saying, like, from exposure and a finance standpoint, like, this is enough to make us move right now, granted, it's a little different because they were there before, but, you know, if you're talking down here a few years and it's $25, $30, $40 million difference, then, yeah, there's going to be people like, absolutely not going to keep doing this. Like, this is not, you know, feasible, and this is not going to work. So yeah, that's inevitable. That's that whole bubble popping it seems like it's inevitable, but it's not a part of the equation right now per se, but it is something to monitor. And, you know, especially when the commissioner's talking about keeping their eyes open or being active in realignment should they need to be. So, yeah, we are not done with that story, I don't think, at all, and how it will probably impact some things probably years down the road, but not as far as we're thinking, not all the way to the end of that contract before something pops off, I'm sure, because we've already seen the early rumblings from that.